Hey there, my people. I am submitting for your viewing pleasure Twilight Zone episode titled Mirror Image. Here we meet Millicent Barnes, a woman at a lonely bus station waiting for a journey that might not take her where she expects. Keep watching to see what happens when Millicent looks in a mirror and see more than just her reflection. Welcome, my people, to the Twilight Zone. The story opens at a remote bus station during a dark and stormy night. We see that the station is nearly deserted, but for the cleaning woman sweeping the floor, an old couple sitting on a bench, the old ticket agent behind the counter, and a woman sitting alone beside a suitcase. That's Millicent Barnes. Millicent glances at her watch, then looks outside at the storm. Then she stands and walks over to the ticket agent. Millicent says, "Excuse me, the bus to Cortland. It was due a half hour ago." The old guy says, "Yep, a half hour ago." Millicent asks, "When will it be in?" The agent says, "Hard to say. It's been raining hard, roads are slick, maybe a bridge or two is out. That'll play hard to the schedule." A bit frustrated, Millicent asks, "Well, when do you think it will be in?" For the first time during this little exchange, the agent looks up from his magazine and says, "She'll be in when she'll be in, that's all. I told you that the last time you asked, miss."
The last time I asked was right now. Look, all I want from you is a civil answer.
The surly ticket agent says, "You're getting a civil answer. The trouble is, every 10 minutes you're up here requiring one." Millicent gives him a confused look, and the old guy continues saying, "Situations just don't change that rapidly. You want to know about the Cortland bus? It's late. It was late when you asked a half hour ago, late when you came back 15 minutes later, and it's late now. And all the asking in the world ain't gonna push it none." And Sister Girl is just standing there looking at this dude. And she says, "But this is the first time I've been up here. The very first time." And so the old guy says, "Now either you need your eyes checked," and then peeps, she stops talking because she notices something.
Now what's the matter?
Sister Girl don't know what to make of this. There's this suitcase in the baggage area that looks identical to hers, and peeps, this isn't new looking luggage. Both pieces seem to be old and scruffed up in the exact same way. Millicent says nothing's the matter, and she turns to go back to her seat, still looking over at the suitcase. Millicent sits down, putting her hand on her chin, wondering. It's raining hard outside as well as thundering, but Millicent is distracted. She turns to look back at the baggage area, at the suitcase that looks so much like hers, and she gets up to take a closer look. Seeing her approaching, the ticket agent says, "Well, shall we run through it again, miss?" Millicent says, "No, thank you." And continuing, she says, "I was just noticing that bag," and she's pointing at the suitcase. The ticket agent says, "What about it?" Millicent says, "It's just like mine. It's identical, even to the broken handle." The ticket agent is giving her some kind of look, and he says,
What is this, some kind of a game?
What?
That is your bag, lady. You checked it.
Oh, no, that isn't my bag. It looks just like my bag, but my...
Uh-oh, here we go. Confused, Millicent turns back to the ticket agent, who says, "Will you go over there and sit down? You're either walking in your sleep or hungover or something." Pointing, He says, go back over there and sit down and let me read my magazine. Dang, this dude is rude. Then he says, when the Cortland bus comes, there'll be a loud sound of an engine, doors opening, and people will come in here. Then you'll know the bus is here. Wow, dude. Come on, you can be nicer. And sister girl Millicent, she just standing there with her mouth hanging open. Like, really, dude? Millicent is shaking her head and she says, but I didn't check my bag. And she goes on to say more, but stops because this guy is looking at her like she's cray-cray. Millicent turns away and heads back to her seat, looking over her shoulder again at the suitcase, still confused. She sits and she looks down at the floor, at the empty space beside the bench where her suitcase had been. Next, we see Millicent get up and go to the ladies' room. The cleaning woman we saw earlier is there, and she looks up when Millicent comes through the door. And the cleaning woman has a sort of surprised look on her face. Millicent walks over to the sink, and the cleaning woman is looking at her and acting kind of weird. Millicent turns on the water, palms some of it, and wets her face. The cleaning woman says, "Are you all right, miss?" Millicent says, "Yes, of course I'm all right," and she yanks down some paper towels. "I'm perfectly all right." The cleaning woman leans over and looks at her sort of strange. Millicent says, "Why? Don't I look all right?" The cleaning woman says, "You look fine. You look just fine." Then she adds, "It's just that when you was in here before," and Millicent's head whips around and she says, "Before? What do you mean before? I've never been in here before." The cleaning woman says, "Honey, you were just in here a few minutes ago." "Me?" Millicent shouts loudly, "I've never been in here before." Then Millicent says, "What's the matter with this place anyway? Somebody keeps taking my bag. Somebody tells me I keep asking about the bus, and now you tell me I've been in here before." The cleaning woman says, "Now take it easy, miss. Everything's gonna be all right." Millicent says, "Of course everything's gonna be all right. There's nothing wrong to begin with." And she starts walking towards the door. "The only thing wrong with you people," she says, "is you need some sleep or something." Then peep, that chick opens that door. What the what? What the what, peeps? That chick sitting on that bench looks up at her. And it's her looking at her. You know what? Okay. I know this is the Twilight Zone. I know they take weird and off twists and turns. But, okay, that's just messed up. Okay, you know what? Give me a minute. Give me a minute. Okay. Oh my! This chick just saw her own self. And the self looked up and saw the chick. And the only person, the only one somebody, shocked, surprised, amazed, was Millicent in the bathroom. That Millicent chick sitting on the bench, peep, she wasn't surprised or nothing. She just looked up at that chick. Okay. All right, here we go, y'all. Here we go. The cleaning woman says to Millicent, "Let me get you a cold cloth. Honey, I don't think you're well." Millicent says, "I don't need it. I'll be all right." And she says to herself, "I must be overtired." Then she straightens up and says, "I will be all right." And she yanks open the bathroom door. And the first thing her eyes land on, peeps, is that empty bench and the suitcase that's now beside it. Millicent looks around the room, then she walks over to the bench, her eyes locked on the suitcase. She leans over and touches the suitcase as if needing to verify it was actually there. She sits down on the bench, and we can clearly see that Sister Girl is confused. It's still raining and thundering outside, lending to the atmosphere being all the more unnerving. Millicent glances over her shoulder to the ticket agent, then she turns fully to the baggage area. Her suitcase isn't there. The agent looks at her and Millicent turns away. Millicent sits there a moment longer than she stands and heads towards the ticket agent. She stops, having second thoughts. 'Cause who wants to talk to that crotchety old dude? Then Millicent looks to the side and spotting an old couple sitting on a bench, she walks over to them. Millicent walks over to the old couple. They're both sleeping with the husband slumped over against his wife. Millicent says, "Excuse me," and the woman jerks awake. "Yes," the old lady says. Millicent says, "I wonder if you saw someone sitting in my seat a few moments ago." The old lady says, "I don't think so, miss, but I wasn't looking very close." At that moment, the old man stirs and wakes up. He sits up and asks, "What's the trouble?" Millicent says, "No trouble. I just thought I saw somebody I knew." She goes on to say thank you as the old guy slumps over against his wife. Millicent says, "Sorry to have disturbed you," and she turns and walks away. Walking past the baggage area, she looks over. Her suitcase is still beside the bench. Millicent walks over to the bench and sits, but you can tell by her body language, peeps, that she's getting pretty creeped out.
What's the matter with me? What's happening?
Before Millicent can dwell too long on it, a man approaches her.
Yes, what is it?
Your bag. I think you dropped it.
The guy, whose name is Paul Winstead, sits down beside Millicent and starts an innocent conversation. He says, "The bus is late, isn't it?" And he takes off his hat and shakes the water from it. Millicent says, "It seems so. Over a half an hour late." The guy puts his hat back on his head and continues chatting, saying, "I was supposed to be in Syracuse tonight by 10. The planes were all grounded, so I took a cab to Binghamton. That darn thing skidded and ran into a tree a few miles outside of here. I had to walk all the way into town just to get here." Then he looks over at Millicent, who's pretty much been silent. Then he says, "Forgive me, miss, you're not ill, are you?" Millicent turns to him and says, "Oh, I don't know what's wrong with me. I really don't." Paul says, "Is it something I can do?" Millicent says, "I don't know. It's just that all sorts of strange things have been happening to me. I've been seeing things." Okay, please. I don't know if I would have shared that with the brother. "Seeing things," Paul says. "What sort of things?" Millicent says, "I'm not sure I should tell you. You'd probably want to move to another part of the room or call the police or an ambulance or something." Paul says, "Why don't you tell me? Maybe I can help."
Everybody keeps telling me that I've been here before.
And Millicent gives him the whole rigmarole. "That man who takes the tickets, he says I keep asking about the bus. And the woman in the powder room, she says I've been in there before, and I haven't," Millicent says, adamantly shaking her head. "And that man, he says I checked my bag, but I hadn't. But there was a bag almost identical to mine in the baggage room. And then when I came out of the powder room, it wasn't there." Paul says, "Go on," and Millicent continues. "It sounds very strange," she says, "but when I came out of the powder room..."
It sounds very strange, but when I came out of the powder room, I looked in the mirror, and I could see the whole waiting room in the mirror.
What did you see, Miss Barnes?
I saw myself sitting right here on this bench.
Now Paul's looking at her like she's not altogether there. Delusions, he says, but in a kind way. Yes, Millicent says. Yes, that's what it must be, delusion. Some sort of delusion. But I'm not sick. I'm not running a fever, she says, touching the side of her face. Then she thinks about it, Peeps, and she says, but it's not just seeing things that doesn't exist. Why did that man and that woman say they'd seen me before? Paul says, I don't know. That is tough to figure out. Millicent asks, what's happening to me? What's wrong? I've never had any trouble like this before. Paul says, of course you haven't. There's an explanation someplace. There's a reason. Maybe there's someone here who resembles you. Or maybe someone's playing some kind of a joke or something. Peeps, he's trying to help a sister out. Millicent says, that's too fantastic. And that doesn't explain about the bag. Girlfriend, you in the Twilight Zone. This is never gonna make sense. Millicent goes on to say, and anyway, if there is such a person, where is she? Where is this person? We see the bus driving up before Paul can answer.
We better get on the bus.
The pair go outside with Paul carrying their bags. He places them down on the ground while Millicent looks in her purse for her bus ticket. Millicent hands the driver her ticket. He tears away his portion and hands her her part of the ticket back. Millicent puts it in her purse, then she heads towards the bus doors. And this happens.
Miss Barnes? Millicent? What's the matter? Wait a minute.
Peeps, what the what? What the what is going on? Is this chick delusional? Is she going over the edge? Has she gone over the edge? Is this real? Is it a nightmare or what? We just saw Millicent running back inside the station with Paul behind her. Well, as we can see, Millicent is passed out cold on one of the benches. The bus driver comes inside and asks Paul if he and Millicent are coming with him. Paul says no, they'll take the next bus. The ticket agent says the next bus isn't due until 7 in the morning. You've got a long wait. And Paul says that's okay. The cleaning lady says, I've got to be getting home, as the ticket agent turns down some of the lights. Paul sits on the bench and Millicent stirs, coming to. Paul asks, are you feeling better? Millicent looks up and says, the bus. Paul says they had to leave. There'll be another before too long. Millicent says, you didn't get on? Paul says, that's all right. I'm this late already. A few more hours won't make any difference. Millicent says, I've been thinking about something. It's very odd, but I've been remembering. Paul asks, remembering what? Millicent says, about something I read or heard about a long time ago. She sits up and scoots closer to Paul. Then she continues saying, I remember I heard something about different planes of existence. Oh, okay, you know what? Here we go, peeps.
About two parallel worlds that exist side by side. And each of us has a counterpart in this world.
And sometimes, through something odd, something unexplainable, this counterpart, after the two worlds converges, comes into our world. And in order to survive, it has to take over. Paul says, take over. Millicent says, replace us. Okay, you know what? Now this is getting a little spooky. This is like, I feel serious. Oh goodness, what is that movie? Something about body snatchers. Something body snatchers. Oh shoot, now it's gonna bug me until I remember it. And Millicent says, replace us. Move us out so it can live. Peeps, we see Paul close his eyes in a sad kind of way. He genuinely likes Millicent and he feels she isn't well. Paul says, that's a little metaphysical for me, and Peeps, that's a little scary for me, just saying. Millicent acts as if she doesn't even hear him, and she says, I remember reading it somewhere. Each of us has a twin in this other world. This chick talking about a doppelganger. An identical twin. Yep, that's doppelganger. Maybe that woman I saw. Paul cuts her off and says, Millicent, there's another explanation. There has to be. Peeps, she's not even listening to Brother Man now. She is so caught up on this trail of thought. I know that's what's happening, she says, and she's just staring off into space. Paul stands up and says, I just thought of something. I've got a good friend down in Tully. I'll call him. Maybe he'll bring his car down for us. I'll go call him. And Peeps, Millicent is just sitting there. She don't even say nothing to Brother Man. She don't even look at him. She's just staring off into space. Sadly, Paul walks over to the agent's desk. The old guy says, if you ask me, she's got a leak in her attic. Paul says, poor kid. The agent asks, you're going to call your friend in Tully? Paul says, I don't have a friend in Tully. She needs help, medical help. I guess I'll call the police. Wow. As for Millicent, Peep, she's still on that bench with a spaced out look on her face. She turns her head slowly towards the ladies' room. Then she stands and walks towards it. Okay, you know what? If that doppelganger chick is in that bathroom, I'm screaming. I might be done with this whole episode. I'm just saying.
Where are you?
Uh-oh.
Where did you go?
Oh, please don't jump out.
What do you want?
Your soul, girl. I'm thinking that's what this whole bit is about. Paul approaches the restroom and Millicent is saying, where are you? And Paul can hear this chick saying this stuff through the door. He calls out, Millicent, are you all right? Millicent says, I'm all right, and she opens the door. Paul says, how about getting some fresh air? Millicent says, all right, and they head towards the door with Millicent looking around the room as if looking for someone. And we know, Peeps, that's someone she's looking for. Paul picks up her things as they're walking and they go outside. A few minutes later, this happens. The police pull up and all but snatch Sister Girl off the streets. Millicent looks at Paul like this is the biggest betrayal ever. Then she's put in the back of the police car, and Paul is just standing there, and you can tell he's feeling like the worst person ever. Paul stands there a few minutes more, feeling rotten about himself before going back inside the station. The ticket agent asks, did you get her off all right? Paul says, yeah, they're going to take her to the hospital for observation. Then he says, the next bus is at 7? The agent says, yeah, you've got about 4.5 hours, pal. And he goes back to his reading. Paul goes over to the bench and places his suitcase on the floor. He removes his hat, loosens his tie, and steps over to the water fountain for a drink.
Hey! Hey!
he's yelling out. Brother man, where are you? Peeps, this is all the ending there is to this. Paul standing on a dark street, his copy or doppelganger just grinning and running away. Just like Millicent's doppelganger, just sitting on the bus, smirking like nothing is wrong with this picture. This is what I like about the Twilight Zone, peeps. This episode just has the ending hanging out there in a mysterious and, to me, a spooky way. I'm with Millicent. I think these doppelgangers are from a parallel universe and they found some kind of a door leading somehow into and through this bus station. Now, this is how Rod Serling ends the episode.
Obscure metaphysical explanation to cover a phenomena. Reasons dredged out of the shadows to explain away that which cannot be explained. Call it parallel planes or just insanity. Whatever it is, you find it in the Twilight Zone.
Well, there you have it, peeps. Twilight Zone episode titled Mirror Image. To my subscribers, I appreciate y'all so much for your commitment to the channel, and I appreciate you viewers as well. Do subscribe, and please everyone give me a like if you will, and comment if you feel like it, and I'll answer you back. Now y'all be kind to one another, and take care of yourselves. Bye-bye for now.